All right. Can everyone at home sees the forms where I'm hovering over 123 Example Street?
Yes, we can see it.
So I always keep a dummy file in zip forms so that I can look at documents. I recommend that all of us have one or two of those. And if you go to documents section, you can go to this blue bar at the top right, all forms, and you can add whatever document you're looking for. So in this instance, we're going to talk about TDS. So that's the real estate transfer disclosure statement, and we're going to talk about SPQ. So I'll add that. So property questionnaire. All right. Now, before I get really started on the TDS and SPQ, I'm going to show you guys also where you find out what disclosures you need. Why am I being logged out as a form? I have not been inactive for an hour. All right, so KW command is where you'd find your checklist. Okay, there are other checklists in the office, but KW command is the most up-to-date one. We all have to use this for our transaction management, whether you are working with a transaction coordinator or doing it yourself. If you're in mentorship, you'll be required to do your first transaction on your own. And that's just because you need to know how to do it. No other reason. There'll be times in every transaction where you have to issue documents, get them signed, and upload them so quickly that you'll need to do it yourself, and you can't rely on a third party like a transaction coordinator to do it. So, can anyone tell me what section of KW command we would find our transaction checklists? Opportunities. Yes, opportunities. So opportunities is this little handshake icon over here. And I'm not going to go through how to set up and show you how to make an opportunity. We have command classes for that, but it's also not too hard. You can kind of fumble your way through it, even if you haven't taken the class. But you would, if you're creating a new opportunity for a buyer sale, a listing of any sort, you'd use this button. In my case, I'm just going to open an opportunity that's existing. I'll show you a lease that I've been lazy about doing my paperwork on. So for instance, I have this one that I need to finish all of my paperwork on. In any case, you fill out all the information about your transaction. You would select the type of transaction it is, right? So in my instance, this is a lease, right? And I'm representing the landlord. I did end up representing the tenant as well. The second tab here, documents. It's going to have documents for listed, under contract, and closed, okay? So there's going to be more than one section where you find the documents you need. Obviously, if you're the listing agent in any kind of transaction, you're going to have documents for all of them. If you're the listing agent, you're the one issuing most disclosures, although any agency and every agent, every brokerage, they're going to have their own disclosures. Some require different disclosures than others. So some of them come from KW. Most of them come from zip forms on our part. So under listed, you would see the documents that you need here. So here they are. You would need the listing agreement, okay? The CCPA, which I believe is actually attached to the listing agreement, and the rental property owner disclosure, which we're just talking about, which is very, very similar to the TDS or seller property questionnaire. All right. Once you are under contract, here are the other things we need. Obviously, in my instance, I need a lease agreement, right? In your instance, you would need a copy of the residential purchase agreement, any and all counters, and it will go through all the other documents that you need. If you see it in an acronym, that's your key that you get this document from zip forms, all right?
Kristen,
Yes.
I think our view is frozen.
Okay, let me stop the share and restart it. How about now? Do you see 10 flood hazard disclosure?
Perfect.
Thank you. All right, so if you see these acronyms, here is your key that you're gonna find this document in zip forms, all right? Now, if you see this one here, it does say KWBH, so there's another tip. This one is gonna come from the brokerage. And you see no acronym after it, right? Can anyone tell me where we find our brokerage disclosures?
No, I always.
Useful links.
Helpful links, that's right. So on the KWBH virtual website, there's a header, and I'll show it to you in a moment, that says helpful links. One of them is for the brokerage disclosures. It takes you to a Google Drive where you can download them, but you'll need to make note of the name of all the documents you need. So when I am trying to figure out what do I need, I'll take a piece of paper out and I'll write down, I'll have two columns, zip forms and KWBH disclosures, right? And so I will write down the acronym or the name of all of them. Now, I do find a couple of errors sometimes, like a document will change, right? Car forms, the state changes documents on us sometimes. But if you have the full name, instead of just the acronym, you'll be able to figure out what that change is. Also, not all documents apply. All right, so specifically the lead-based paint disclosure, and I believe that is the one that's changed. I think the acronym for that one's changed, but if you type in the word lead on zip form search bar, you'll find the new one. In any case, lead paint stopped being used at a point in 1978. So when you are looking at these disclosures, you don't just print them out, fill them out, and get them all signed. You need to read them, right? Because the FLD, or now it's, I think it's like LR or something. I forget what it is now. It will tell you right on it. This this disclosure is not required for property built after 1978. All right, so you do need to look at all the disclosures. So I make all my lists. I go ahead and I print them anyways. Then I read them. Okay, I mean, you guys need to learn them and read them anyhow so you understand them. But go ahead, print them all out, go old school, kill a tree so that you don't have to kill future trees. Okay. Read them, decide what you need.
There's no way that Keller Williams can put that link. I'm assuming if they could, they would have.
They cannot put the link to the zip forms documents. No,
There.
they and they used to have some of the links, but you can talk to Michael Rosales, he's the one in charge of doing that. Yes, there used to be links to some of them, but not all of them.
Your system is super clear and organized, what you do, how you were saying you make 2 lists, but it's like, it's already so time consuming, it just takes so long.
I mean, what do you think we get paid for?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
documents are a big part of our job, unfortunately. I mean, I like it. I'm a paperwork nerd, yeah. I don't like the, hey, how are you part of the job. I like the here, sign here part. This is what this means. But in any case, yeah, you can talk to Michael Rosales about that. But here's the thing, once you start relying on that, when things change,
It's hard, yeah.
you won't know, and you'll need to go talk to him again about uploading them. So then there are also some documents under closed. For a sale transaction, there's going to be a bunch of documents here. On the closed section for sale documents, most of them actually come from the escrow company. All right, a lot of them come from the escrow company. And if you're not sure, if you type me a little list and you email me or you ask your mentor, they'll be able to say, oh yes, this one comes from escrow, this one comes from escrow, this one comes from escrow, this is one of ours. Okay, but when you're in a transaction, you should look at all of these way prior to your close, because like I said, you must disclose, you must provide the buyer with all the seller disclosures within whatever time frame was written into the contract. So if you take my listing classes, right, listing agreement, I end listing presentation, I talked to you about this. It's really important that you get all the seller disclosures signed prior to going on the market, because you might uncover information that, first off, it could make the sale not viable for the seller. B, you could find information that causes you to do some investigation or repair work or get some estimates or some numbers or altered price, so that you can protect the seller's price with information you deem to be accurate, right? So if we know there's a big problem in the house, the seller hasn't mentioned this to you, but they do during disclosures prior to going on the market, we can find out how much that problem is going to cost to solve. Perhaps it's not that big of a problem and we can resolve it, and it's not going to be something the buyer can negotiate money for. Perhaps it is a big problem, but we can get some estimates. And so instead of trusting that the buyer's estimated number for the cost of the repair is correct, we can disclose it up front, we can give them a copy of the report, the estimate, and we can reflect the purchase price accordingly so that we can protect our seller's price, right? So we can deem that information reliable. So disclosures are really important to get signed up front, and then you won't have any problem, you won't be under any stress to be able to provide the seller disclosure package to the buyer within the time frame that is specified within the residential purchase agreement. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now that I've shown you where you can get your checklist and check things. And by the way, you see some of these say optional. So it doesn't mean optional, like, do I feel like doing it? Sometimes that's what it means. But sometimes optional means like that 1978 requirement. It may or may not apply. So you see these here, it says required, optional. Let me see if I can find one that says optional, but I know it's not. Let me go into, I'm gonna go really quickly into an opportunity that is a sale opportunity. All right. This is one of my sales. It is closed. Let's look at documents. I need to talk to Brian Chung because this file's been closed for like 2 months. I don't see any documents in here. What if my client needed it? Ha, Brian.
You probably don't even check your files. It's like, it's Kristen, everything's fine.
I hire Brian and I pay him to do it. So
Right.
here we go. Optional. Oh wait, conditional. So sometimes I've seen conditional and optional marked incorrectly. Let's see. Optional counter offers. Well, if you have a counter offer, is it optional to upload it?
No.
No, right? So we have to exercise our judgment here. And optional, conditional, I've seen those interchangeably used in ways that I don't always think are accurate.
I didn't know that. It's not optional. Yeah.
Optional, I mean, like a trust advisory, if the seller is in a trust, that's not an optional form, that's a required form, right? So that's conditional. So that's one that's marked incorrectly. Does that make sense? I just want you to notice those things and know the difference and question them so that you're not stuck without a document you need to get paid. Okay, so I'm going to stop share here unless anyone has any questions about this. Yes.
Yesterday, I upload some documents for my lease deal, and I have way more than Cal Williams request.
Okay, off topic, but I'll show you. So here, you're going to press on these dots,
Okay.
and you'd say add document,
Oh, okay,
and you're going to say what the name of the document is and what type it is.
perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. There will often be more documents. There will always be more documents in a sale transaction than there are spaces for. And that is because the other agent
Yeah,
is
yeah.
going to have their brokerage disclosures and they must be uploaded. They're part of the transaction, but every brokerage has different ones. So there's no way for us to have a space here to upload those. Okay. Any more questions from those of you at home? Yes.
Sorry, all paperwork after lease or rent, whatever sale deal, we have to keep here and command or in zip forms or both.
In
places.
command,
In
and you
command.
need to submit them. And you as an agent must have copies of documents of all of your transactions for how many years, guys? 3. I highly recommend keeping them in perpetuity.
Printed.
No, you don't have to have them printed. You just need to have a complete
So-
copy of your file. So if you use KW Command,
Okay.
you can download them once you upload them.
Yeah, sure. So Google Disk, command, and zip forms. This is 3 places where I have to keep after.
Google what?
Google List or something.
Google Drive, you don't have to use Google Drive if you don't want to, but I do.
Yeah, I do. too.
Because I don't plan on leaving KW, but if I ever do, I'm gonna lose access to KW Command, and I'd have to go into every single transaction I've done since I've been here, and I need to download all of them. So yes, I do keep a copy of everything in a Google Drive file as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Stop share. Now I'm gonna show you guys where to find the KW brokerage disclosures. Just like if you are on Zoom or you wanted to Zoom this class, you would go to kwbhvirtual.com. And you would select, oh, I need to share my screen. You would select helpful links up here. Under helpful links, you're going to go to approved logos, checklists, and disclosures. And then you're going to select disclosures. Okay, here's a place for lease disclosures. Here are other documents. This is actually a zip form, so I don't know why it's in here like this. I think Michael may have used it as an example for people.
I have.
What's that?
I saw this document the first time.
Yeah. So I would recommend not using any of the ones that aren't in this folder for lease. Anything else that is required for sale, it's not going to be in this folder, right? Because this is lease disclosures. But if you're looking for a lease disclosure, you'll find some of them in here. But I would recommend going here because I know for a fact that they're all in here. Okay.
Where did you go, sorry?
Under disclosures, lease disclosures, if it's a lease. But if it's not a lease, you're gonna find any of the KW documents within here.
There is any place to write the name and search for something specific?
Of course, right here.
Okay. The gas and Charlotte, for example.
I mean,
I
like,
can-
there's not that many. It'd probably be easier for you to scroll.
Okay.
You're welcome. All right, I'm gonna stop share. And I am going to go back to zip forms. Which I think I kicked myself out of. Maybe, and I have it. I'm gonna download our TDS and SPQ. So that I can go over them with you. Going to screen share. All right, so if you don't have a copy of the seller property questionnaire and transfer disclosure statement in front of you, and you have the ability to do so while following along the class, go ahead and try to pull those up. I need to go and blow my nose in the restroom. I'll be right back. Someone is eating fried chicken or something like that. How does that smell?
There was a thing class.
Yeah. Yeah, don't walk that way. All right. Can everyone at home see seller property questionnaire? It's like Jeopardy, Final Jeopardy, you have 3 seconds, yes or no? What is, you don't care? Nobody? Are you guys at home still following me? Can you hear me? Well, there are people. I haven't changed anything. I prefer that. I heard them before. Tom, are you there? Malika, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, okay. You know, when I started doing this at pandemic and it was all on Zoom, nobody would answer me. And I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like legit, or I tell like one of my bad dad jokes. I would hear nothing and I'm like, I feel really stupid right now, guys. All right. So seller property questionnaire. All right, so this is a legally required disclosure, okay? This form is not a substitute for the real estate transfer disclosure, TDS, the other document we're gonna look at, okay? It is used by the seller to provide additional information when a TDS is completed. If seller is exempt from completing a TDS, and that is extremely rare, and we'll talk about that, seller should complete an exempt seller disclosure statement, ESD. Okay, so there is no getting around TDS or ESD. ESD is used in extremely rare instances where a seller knows nothing about a property. And I would talk to Michael Rosales before ever allowing anyone to use the exempt seller disclosure statement to make sure that they fit the requirements. But a lot of times this will be something like a conservatorship sale or something where an attorney is acting on behalf of a seller, that kind of a thing. And you'll send them the disclosure package and they'll be like, no, we need the ESD. Still double check with Michael Rosales before just taking instruction from anyone that they don't need to complete a TDS. All right. All right. So when we talk about disclosures, let me first start by talking to you about what a seller is obligated to disclose. A seller is obligated to disclose anything that they think might affect value or desirability of a property, which is in the eye of the beholder, right? But it is better to disclose than fail to disclose. Because if a seller is like, I wonder if I need to mention my neighbor's incessantly barking dog. They choose not to, and then the buyer comes back to sue them later because they can't sleep at night because of this incessantly barking dog. And they go to court and they're like, seller, did you know about the barking dog? Yes, we did. Now, burden of proof is obviously on buyer, right? You have to prove that the seller purposely chose not to disclose something. So there is a lot of gray area there, but let's keep there from being gray area, right? We don't want gray area. How many years must you disclose death on property? 3. What about if it was suicide or murder? In perpetuity, you must disclose forever. Why? Because that definitely, for a lot of people, could affect what value and desirability. Yeah. Even if it was a natural death and it was 5 years ago, maybe something that you want to disclose because that could affect desirability and value for a buyer. It could. So better to disclose than not disclose. Here's the other thing. For a seller, sort of like our agent visual inspection disclosure, which is, by the way, part of the disclosure process, and we'll talk about that at the end of class. It's not okay to make conjecture, nor should they. So if they've noticed that something's not working properly, or they've noticed some discoloration somewhere, they should not offer what it is unless they know what it is, right? They should offer what they know. What I know is there's the northeast corner of the garage, there's been discoloration after rain. Not They haven't seen water, right? They don't know what it is. They don't know if it's mold. They don't know if it's water. Just what they know, but they do need to disclose what they know. So no conjecture. So if a seller was like, there's no mold, it's past water damage, right? But they don't know that. That is a failure to disclose. And even if they didn't necessarily mean it that way, that's a misleading, that's a hurtful failure to disclose, right? They haven't had a mold inspection. They don't know that. They maybe haven't seen rain, or they weren't home the last time it rained. Maybe it's still ongoing. So unless they know it's been repaired, they don't know that it's a past leak. Right? So they only disclose what they know. Is that, after rain, this, discoloration showed up at the northeast corner of the garage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, just what they know, no conjecture. If they have had people out to take a look and they have any estimates or reports, that's very important to have. And instead of explaining the situation, if the seller has any documents or estimates from any professionals, anything like that, I always say see attached whatever. I get those documents from them if they have them. If there was any massive repair that an insurance company handled, we will disclose it, like there was a flood in the upstairs bathroom in blah, blah, blah year. Please see attached documents from the insurance company outlining all of the work that was performed to remedy it, right? No reason to recreate the wheel. Take all of the liability off that you can. Now, most of the time the seller doesn't have those documents, but if they, especially if it was done through insurance, they can contact their insurance broker and ask for a copy of all of that. And I would just attach it and say, see attached on these disclosures. No reason to recreate anything. A seller's recollection of what happened or knowledge of what happened, it could be vastly different from what actually happened, even if they are being as honest as possible, right? I don't know what I ate yesterday. I don't know what I wore. I don't know what I did yesterday. So it's always just, easier and less work. If you have documents, you can just say see attached. All right, so very important. Agents may not complete these documents for clients. Okay, we can fill out the addresses, the APN number, all of that kind of stuff, but we cannot answer these questions. Like you can't be on the phone and check these boxes, answer the questions, and write in for the seller. Not possible. That is a lose your license permanently offense. Why? This is a seller disclosure, not agent disclosure. Also, we are not supposed to be telling them what to write here. So I do play a little devil's advocate here when I have my sellers fill these out, is sometimes I'll know what they're talking about and they're using the wrong terminology. And so I'll be like, wait, can you show me what you're talking about? Is that what this is called, or is this what this is called? Right? I can't tell them what to write, but I know that what they're writing in there is not correct.
So you're on the phone with them while they're.
I am hopefully in person at the property with them. At worst, I am on the phone with them completely. And sometimes I'll find sellers after I coach them about how important these are. They are like digging. They're like, oh, I don't know what month. I think it was 2021 or 2022. I don't remember. That's okay. Sometime between 2021 and 2022, we did this. That's okay. You don't have to be exact. You can say approx. Yeah.
This might be a little bit of a stupid question, but if they say to you, oh, I've got absolutely terrible handwriting, and I tell you what to say, and you write it in, can you do that?
No. You can set it up for them on DocuSign or in the live. Why marks this up better? In fact, DocuSign, the plugin with zip forms might tag this up now. It didn't used to do it, and doing it by hand is impossible for us. Okay, but that new one I was telling you guys, the rental property owner disclosure, the plugin, it tags it up perfectly now. But I still want to be in person because I've never had a single seller complete these correctly or thoroughly without my being there and being like, wait, now we have to add this to the explanation section since you said yes. So try it. Send a DocuSign to yourself with transfer disclosure statement. And because if that's the case, they can pull it up on their computer when you're in person with them and they can type it there. But no, we may not complete these for them, whether there's bad handwriting or not. And you will have clients that, this will happen to you at least once in your career, if not more times, that are not tech savvy and are not comfortable with DocuSign or doing anything on the computer. And in that case, their bad handwriting is just gonna stand, and you're probably gonna have a lot of attachments, because whatever they write is probably not gonna fit in the spaces that are here unless it's typed. Right, now, it talks about the limitation of the seller's liability. And it talks about the purpose to the seller, which we've already talked about, which is to disclose and tell the buyer about any material or significant items affecting value or desirability, and eliminate misunderstandings about the property. They can only answer based on their actual knowledge and recollection. If they forget something and they're wrong, can a seller be sued for misremembering something? No. They disclose something and they remember information differently than it was, it would be burden of proof on the buyer to prove that the seller purposefully misled the buyer. Most of the time, that is not the case, right? My favorite, getting into high-end real estate. Seller has no knowledge of the property. Seller has no knowledge of the property. I have that happen to me all the time. And my buyers are like, can they do this? And I'm like, no, but since they did, do you think that they're going to give us accurate information anyhow? I'm like, no, let's just inspect the plug out of that house. I don't believe anything this guy tells us anymore. So, I mean, be a good agent. That should never be the answer for any disclosures you're having your sellers complete, right? I mean, they probably know if there are sprinklers on the property, right? There are questions on here that, I'm sorry, even if you've rented it for the last 10 years, there are questions on here that a seller can answer. All right. Also, all of these questions have yes or no answers. Some of them have subsequent questions if you've answered the first question one way or the other. And if you answer yes, if the seller answers yes to any question, they must enter an explanation in the explanation line section underneath that section of questions. And let me tell you, here is the really big kicker. There are some stupid questions where the answer yes or no should be the end of it. Except if the seller does not write in the explanation section a reiteration of that answer, the disclosure is incomplete. And if I am the buyer's agent, I am going to hold that and I'm going to use it against you if I must. It is a massive dick move, and that is not the way to operate your business, right? You need to be well received by your colleagues, but I have an obligation and duty to my buyer to protect them. So if I need to use that, I will. So you make sure that these are completed and they're completed thoroughly. You check them. You never just let a seller fill out a package and don't look at it. I guarantee you it will be wrong unless you're doing it with them. Even then, check it before you leave. It's a lot of information. Also, when you do the seller disclosure package, it's a lot. I put all of the easy, like one-liner, sign here, sign there on top, and I save the TDS and SPQ for the very last, because I don't want my sellers to be like, oh my God, if we do these first, and they think the rest of the stack of documents I have are going to take this long or be this thorough.
So what are you doing again? You give them first where the easy to sign and then
I give them all the easy ones first, and then we spend the time on these ones. Okay. Also, section 5, documents. So basically, if the seller has any reports, inspections, disclosures, estimates from the time they own the property or even when they purchase in their possession, they're supposed to say yes here. And you're supposed to, maybe under the explanation line, if they say yes, you'd say what they have, and you'd say see attached. And you would actually attach those documents to this disclosure, and they would become part of the seller property questionnaire. All right. Does this mean the seller has to go back and try to find all of them? No, it doesn't. It does not. But if they have it, they know they have it, and they're able to provide it. Great. I do believe that this can be kind of problematic though, because anything that they may have uncovered in their inspections, they may have subsequently repaired. So under the explanation line, I might say, see roof, if they're like, oh yeah, we had a roof inspection when we bought, and I know I have that right here. And we had it all corrected. We had it repaired. In fact, it's a brand new roof. I would, under the explanation section, say, see attached roof repair from purchase. All work has been completed to code. see attached, you know, invoice for repair work, if they have that. If not, I would just have them sit on the explanation section. Also, many times, there'll be explanations that take more room than we have space for. In that instance, you're going to say, see attached addendum 1. I wouldn't use an actual addendum from zip forms. I would have them use a Word document. I would title it addendum 1.
Why?
For more space, because in an addendum, you have about 4 inches of
Right.
space to write, and you have 3 or 4 pages of the seller property questionnaire. Chances are, if you have to use an addendum, if there's more than one section that takes more space, you're gonna have to use 2 or 3 or 4 addendums. So keep it simple. An addendum can be anything as long as it's titled addendum and you say what it's an addendum to. In this case, it'd be an addendum to the seller property questionnaire dated whatever date they've completed this document. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, yeah, and you can say page 1, page 2, page 3, so you don't have to put it on. So if they needed 4 Word document pages, you could just have, you know, a page number on the bottom. And it can be page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. They can write on a lined piece of paper and do it the same way. As long as it's clear, you're saying what it's an addendum to. You can use whatever format you want. And I also, in the one of the ways that I keep things clear for myself and for everyone else, I will instruct the seller if they're saying, like here, section 6 has A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. If there's an explanation for them, I will have them in the explanation section, but A. So I keep it very clear for the buyers what explanation is for which question within that section. Does that make sense? Yeah, so same thing if I'm using that addendum, I would have them do the same way. Only if I was using a separate document entirely, like a Word document, I would have them say 6A and then put the explanation. All right. Let's see. So, section 6, are you the seller aware of? Within the last 3 years, the death of an occupant upon the property? Yes, no. If the seller says yes, what do we automatically have to do?
Explain.
Yeah, right here, you would say, have them put A, there was a death in the property, whatever year. Now, most of the time, people, they want a little bit of a further explanation, right? There's law protecting people's health status. You can say of natural causes, old age, anything else, none of anyone's business, right? You can disclose there was a death, but remember, I told you, if there was a suicide or a violent death on the property, that can affect in perpetuity the desirability or value of the house.
If that was the case.
What's that?
Do you have to go into detail, or is it enough to say what it was, suicide or?
No, you don't have to go into detail, suicide, whatever. And as an agent, I really try to stay out of it. At that point, you know, if the buyer and seller want to talk directly, it might be one of the only times I'll let them talk directly about it. But most people, it's either a yes or no, depending, it doesn't really matter. Did they do it with a rope in the library? Did they do it with a gun in the kitchen, you know, in the dining room? You know, it's not a game of Clue. Either it's a deal breaker for them or it's not. Right? So we don't go into detail, you know. Yeah. And obviously, if there was something like a violent or an unnatural death on the property, this is something you're going to disclose before you go into escrow. Okay. This is going to be something that you disclose going into escrow. And I would probably do it in agent remarks, in the private remarks. And I would say there was a death on property. Agent, please call listing agent to discuss further. And I would say, hey, potential buyer agent, there was a murder on the property. You know, so please discuss that with your buyer before, you know, forward. So it even says here, the manner of death may be a material fact to the buyer and should be disclosed, except for a death by HIV/AIDS. Again, I'm not going into detail. You know, And I don't, especially with a seller, it can be a really sensitive subject, right? Perhaps they lost their spouse due to cancer. Do they need to write that they lost their spouse due to cancer? No, but dying from cancer is a natural cause of death, right? So we can say, you could tell your seller, they can say, death due to natural causes. What about COVID? It's a biological agent, therefore it's still natural causes. My favorite one, and I say this because, now your seller's like, oh my God, when are we gonna be done with this? Section 6B. I asked them if they've been Breaking Bad. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, read the question. Are you cooking meth? If the answer is yes, you're probably not selling that property. You should just end that appointment. Yeah, because there are massive legal cleanup requirements. You might want to get out of there anyways, if their answer is yeah. But maybe, they purchased the property as distress or a foreclosure property, who knows? In any case, I'm not going to go through all the questions. I'm going to just kind of skim these because there are some I want to point out. Like, for instance, whether the property is located in or adjacent to an industrial use zone. Do you think that your seller would really know that anyways? If it was, they may, but likelihood is they would not. And so if they say no and they are wrong, are they liable? No, they're answering to the best of their ability, to the best of their knowledge. All right. Whether the property is a condominium or located in a planned unit development or other common interest subdivision. This is one of those dumb questions. Or I should say dumb explanation question. If it's a condo, the answer is yes. And that should be the end of it, but that is not. So in the explanation section down below, you must have them write G. The condo, the property is a condo, there is an HOA. Okay. No blanks, no lack of explanation for any yeses, even when it's self-explanatory by answering yes or no. Okay. Blanket question. Material facts or defects affecting the property not otherwise disclosed to the buyer. There's no get out of jail free here. Just because it didn't ask doesn't mean seller doesn't have to say something. Whether the property was built before 1978. They should know the answer to that, right? But if the answer is yes, you have to say, you can say, E, property was built prior to 1978, or E, property was built in 1955, whatever, however, you just need to have that explanation. And then, if the answer is yes, this is one of those questions where there are subsequent questions. If you ask for any renovations, sanding, cutting, whatever demolition of lead-based paint services started or completed. Well, if they don't know that there was lead there, even if there was work done, the answer would be no, because they don't know. But if they do know that there was lead there, they would say yes, and then they would answer if it was done in accordance with the EPA guidelines for removal of lead surfaces. Believe me, most sellers have no idea, most people have no idea, and they don't want to have an idea. They go in and they sand that and they repaint it and they remodel, and there is probably lead-based paint if that property is really old. At some point, there are layers of lead-based paint. But if they don't know, they don't know. We don't need to go have an inspection to find out, right? If they truly knew, they probably wouldn't have done it anyways, because they wouldn't have wanted to expose themselves or their family to lead-based paint. We're not going on a witch hunt here. We're just disclosing what we know to the best of our abilities. Okay. Steve. My favorite. 11C, past or present odors, urine, feces, discoloration, stains, spots, or damage in the property due to any of the above. Oh man, I sold the hoarder house once. That smelled like pee so bad. I like literally, this is when I was an assistant, I called my boss and I was like, I can't believe you did that to me. I'm gonna go home and take a shower now, and I'm gonna come back to work if I feel like it afterward. Sat in that house for an hour and a half. And what do you think the seller checked on here? Do you think they checked yes? They did
No.
not, they checked no. I did not correct them. I did not correct them. I exercised my judgment, and I don't know if I could be in trouble for that or not, but I'm certainly not gonna tell the seller, I'm sorry, your house smells like piss and shit.
Right.
So you must answer yes. In fact, I see some. I'm not going to do that. But I was pretty confident I'm okay because any buyer walking in there, unless they've lost their ability to see or smell, is going to see it
Right.
and they're going to be aware of it. Right? But if it was a different kind of question, you know, like the seller's telling me, oh yeah, I know there's a foundation issue, and they're not disclosing something like that on here, I do have an obligation as an agent to say, you told me about this issue. I'm seeing that you're saying otherwise here. Was there a miscommunication? I need to be clear about the condition of the property so I can do my best job selling it for you. Even if they want to lie at that point, my liability is gone, right? Something like that, I might take disclosure back with me and I might put it in writing. Because I don't want it to be a he said, she said thing, right? I want it in writing. But thankfully, most of the time, I can look at my seller and be like, really? Fix that, please.
So Christine, if they don't want to disclose the thing that they disclose it prior to you, is that fine to put it in this questionnaire?
I am not the seller. This is a seller
No.
disclosure. So
I-
let me answer that when we look at the real estate transfer disclosure statement, okay? Let me answer that at a later date and time. I just told you, I don't know that it's fine, but I'm taking liability off myself by getting it in writing that they told me one thing, or I thought I heard one thing. I'm noticing that they've completed the disclosures in a different way, and I'm asking them to please clarify it for me. Even if they don't want to fix this document, there is a place on the transfer disclosure statement for me as an agent to say something. Although my seller has to sign that, so if I don't put it there, I can put it on the agent visual inspection disclosure. There is a space that says, agent, are there any other conditions you might be aware of other than what you visually have inspected and disclosed on this form? All right. And again, we have all these blanket questions, and they do it on purpose. We've already seen a blanket question. Is there anything that, should be disclosed to the buyer? Again, any past or present known material facts or other significant items affecting the value or desirability of the property not otherwise disclosed to the buyer. The state is not messing around. They're not saying, oh, you're off the hook if we didn't ask you the right question. If there's something that should be disclosed, they've asked twice in this one form, please tell the buyer. So here it is again. And then remember, I told you if there's additional comments, you can use lined paper, you can use a Word document, as long as you indicate that that document is attached to these sections and you clearly identify what you're talking about on those pages. So if I need an extra room for section 18, I would check this, well, no matter what, if you have an attachment, you're checking the box of 19. But, I would say on that Word document, section 18C, and then I'd have them type in the explanation. It just needs to be really, really clear. What is the seller talking about? Okay, so buyer, seller sign, great. Transfer disclosure statement. So I'm gonna skip really quick down to this section. So Malika,
Yes. Yes.
Here you
Oh.
go. If you know about something or think you know about something, do you think the state's letting you off? Nah. You can disclose it here, or you can disclose it on
Happy.
the agent visual inspection disclosure. Yes. The Avid. When
And
should,
how if the seller asks you to not do that? Can they?
they can ask you anything that you want, but can you do it legally or ethically as a licensed agent?
Absolutely not.
No, you cannot. And what do you risk if you do it? Your license, but also being sued for any damages that are incurred by anyone. Because the seller could even sue you. I don't know that they win, but the buyer is gonna win. If you knew about something and you didn't disclose it, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
We have a whole disclosure for ourselves just for that, Avid. I would probably not use this section to disclose something that the seller is trying to hide that I know about. I would probably use the see attached agent visual inspection disclosure because I get to do things a little softer, a little more vague in there. Right? I'm just talking about qualitative assessments of things versus, you know, seller previously mentioned to me, blah, 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 but failed to disclose in SPQ section G4. I don't want, that causes me a problem with my seller. I would prefer to do it on the Avid form. I don't think that anyone reads the Avid form. Well, I don't think that my client reads my Avid form. The other parties might read my Avid form, which is who I need to disclose it to, right? So I'm not trying to start World War III with my client, but honestly, Malika, if I had a seller who was trying to do that, I would probably tell them, you need to work with another agent. I'm not comfortable working with you. Because I'm not comfortable risking my license over any sale.
I see. Okay, thanks.
So for the TDS, if we're not supposed to fill that out in that section,
This section is for us to fill out.
okay,
See,
so they just, okay.
yeah, this is, we're signing, we're dating. The rest is all the seller. Yeah. Yes.
So all the document from the Keller Williams website, should we upload it to the opportunity on command, or we should just save it on like different folder on the desktop, kind of? We need to
Well-
upload it with, there is any way to upload from Google,
Well, no, because you need to have it signed anyhow.
Okay,
Yeah, you get it signed and then you upload it to command. You don't ever upload unsigned documents to command.
okay.
Yeah.
So is there like the zip form, the card that you just upload all the documents?
Yeah, once you have it signed, you upload the documents
Okay.
to,
Okay.
and KW command, it's annoying because a lot of our documents we get signed comes as one PDF file, right?
Yeah.
But in KW command, we have to separate them. There is a functionality in KW command to separate it. I tried it. It is the most annoying, time-consuming bullshit I've ever experienced in my life.
I think it's so convenient. Yesterday I just tried.
How long did it take you?
First time it's long, but I think.
Oh, I mean, even for it to upload the documents and separate them, it's a couple minutes for each separation. So here's what you can do. You can go ahead and scan multiple, we can separate the documents and scan them to yourself. Or you can do like me, I have Adobe Acrobat Pro. You pay like online, I think you pay like $25 a month for it or something. Oh my God, it's so worth it. You can separate PDF files very, very easily using that.
There's also ilovepds.com and
For free?
to do all those
There you
things.
go. ilovepds.com
Yeah.
for free. Yeah, the KW command tool, it works, but it is so time consuming on it. Fuck my life. Most time I'm doing this shit for a lease because like, not only like, I'm not making enough money to pay anyone anything on it, but it take like, no transaction coordinator, at least it's not a priority for them. What are you paying them? Like 50, 75 bucks? That's not a priority for them. I need to get it taken care of. So I just have Adobe Acrobat. But yes, I tried it in KW command. I thought, oh, well, if it's here, it must be convenient. It's not. You know what? We'll try it. I'll show you. Let's talk about convenience. It's not convenient. In any case, the TDS is just like the SPQ, only it asks slightly different questions. It asks a lot more about specific equipment. If there are inspection reports. Oh, by the way, one of the biggest mistakes that's ever made is this section is left incomplete, okay? I always check the first box. The reason I always check the first box is even if the buyer was to do no inspections, there are inspection reports required by law in our state always, such as the NHD. So if I check box 1, I can never be wrong. Okay. This is a part that the agent completes. Very important, this date box. This is the date that the seller has completed the TDS. Why is this important? It's because the condition of the property can change from the time they've completed their TDS to the time that the buyer receives it or the transaction closes. Okay. And this date's important because if there was ever a dispute about something, this date comes into play. Did the seller disclose accurately and completely as of the date that they completed this document? All right, and then you would, and this is another mistake I see all the time. And remember, any mistake, any misspot means I can kick this back to you and you have failed to meet your obligation to disclose. And once you complete it and send it back to me, I have 5 additional days and my buyer can cancel. Even if you literally just forgot to have them check the box, whether or not they're occupying the property. Crummy way to do it. You're probably never going to want to see my face or work with me again. So again, I don't use these things lightly. I use them if I must to protect my clients. Okay. And then it goes through about a list of all the equipment that's on the property. Okay. And, you know, sometimes your seller knows the answers to these, sometimes they do not. Ask if anything is not working. And if they answer yes, what do they have to do? They have to explain it. Same thing, you can add additional sheets if necessary. I don't like this question, but it is exactly the same. I don't like it because it asks if there are any significant defects or malfunctions in any of the following before saying what it's asking about. What do you think my seller always wants to check? They always want to check no, but I'm like, wait. Read all of these first. And you check any of them that there is an issue with, and then you'd say yes. And then you would describe in what we refer to as the explanation section. Okay. So all these questions are all the same. And not the same, but I mean, they're answered the same way.
So anytime, let's say, like, they don't have enough space and you have to do the Word document, like,
I would just say see attached for further explanation.
and then each one would be like a different addendum.
No,
It could just all. be
yeah,
the
as long as
same
you
one.
identify the section, like this is all section
Okay.
C, C3, C5, D2, like that. Yeah, and I would just keep it one continuous document.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense?
Yes.
All right. Sometimes there'll be a question. And nobody has any idea what they're talking about. So let me find one. I'll just use this one for example. What if your seller has no idea what fill means? Can they answer no? Yes, we don't, it's not our job to go research and figure out what is being asked. If they have no idea what it is, chances are the answer is no anyhow. But if you wanted them to be extra careful, you could say no, and even though they're checking no in the explanation section, you could have them say section C6, uncertain what fill is. Okay. All right, so we're gonna stop that share. Do we have any questions about TDS SPQ? About where to find the checklist or other disclosures? No? Now let me show you the garbage tool that you all have available to you to break PDFs apart. All right, so let's say. How do you remember how I did this? Split and attach PDF. All right, so I'm going to browse. And let's say the seller property questionnaire is actually 2 different documents and I need to split it apart. Next. So now I have to click on each page. I have to decide what number. So let's say pages 1 through 2, and I'm going to call it pretend.1. What happened? I don't want to attach pages to anything. So they did make a change here. So I have to identify what I want it to go to. So I'm going to add document, I'm going to say pretend 1, document type, I'm going to call it a disclosure. Move this, save. Now I have to upload it here. I don't know, dude. Sorry, ask Blake. But it doesn't, it's slow. It's really slow. Unless they've changed something that I'm unaware of. Admittedly, the last time I tried this was over a year ago, and I was like, I'm never touching this thing again. It was like late at night too. I was like, oh my God, I was being such a good girl. I was like, I was just gonna upload my lease document, my lease documents before I went to bed because I should have done this a week ago. For my $325 check, and it took me like an hour and a half, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe these poor people who do it this way. Because at first I was just uploading, like if there's a package of documents, I would just upload it, whatever had the document in it, to each section in the checklist. My results was like, you can't do that. And I was like, well, then why don't you make your checklist correct? Because zip forms automatically carry certain documents. And he was like, and I was like, fine, I'll do it right. But again, I use the transaction coordinator. So unless it's lease, I don't have to do it most of the time. In any case, it definitely has something to do with split and attach PDF. I just don't know what. All right, guys, does anyone have any questions for me?
Yeah, that was amazing. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, very helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Remember, Avid is part of disclosure. Whether you're a buyer's agent or listing agent, you are doing Avid. Make sure it is handled, done, and provided to the other side within the seller disclosure continuous timeframe in your residential purchase agreement. Wow, that was a lot to say.
Oh, actually, I know that the average has to be handed in there. Okay.
Yeah, because what if your seller was wrong or misleading? You as the listing agent are still obligated to disclose what you know, so shouldn't that be during the disclosure period?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then mine in later this time.
A lot of agents do that, but you can get yourself into a massive amount of trouble. So if I'm a listing agent, I generally do it prior to going on the market. Like I might do it at a lull during the open house or right after an open house, or I might do it even prior to putting it on the market, like during my photography appointment or something like that. If I'm the buyer's agent, I don't have much opportunity to do it. I must do it at the first, like the day I get in there for inspections, which can be difficult because here you are needing to pay attention to the inspector and managing your buyer and all of that and connecting with them. So I have the luxury now, I have a team. A lot of times I will have my team agent come with me to do the Avid or to kind of oversee inspections while I do the Avid, or we'll trade off at different times because I have to juggle. I have to juggle several very important things as a buyer agent at that time. Or here's an even better idea. ask the listing agent if you can pop in there 30 minutes early to do your avids so that you're able to be with your buyer during the inspections.
So both agent doing the inspection, like the buyer and the seller.
Both buyer and seller agent do agent visual inspection disclosure, yes.
And one more question, the Keller Williams wire fraud and the wire transfer, it's the same document?
Because if it's Keller Williams, it's a brokerage disclosure. But the other one, the wire fraud advisory, that has an acronym, we know is a zip form.
No, but there is one in Keller Williams, it's called Keller
I
Williams
know.
wire fraud.
I know a lot of our brokerage disclosures have something to do with disclosures that the state makes. Basically, our attorneys came in and they want us more protected than the state offers in that disclosure. Those disclosures are between buyer and seller for the most part. They're not to protect the agent. So our attorneys at KW have looked at them and been like, we should go ahead and draft our own disclosure protecting us in relation to this. So yeah, you'll see Keller Williams brokerage disclosures very similarly named that just cover us, our brokerage, a little bit more on the same issue. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, unless anyone at home has a question for me, that's all we got.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Do some homework. Get to know those disclosures. Try filling them out in your own apartment or house.
I have a question. Do you have